Hello everyone, welcome back to another video. And in this video, we're gonna go ahead and take a look at James Smith, the downfall of modern podcasts. This is actually very interesting because I put forth the idea of podcast traps about 2 to 3 months ago discussing this very topic. And I also got one video in the making, so stay tuned for that. But in regards to this video, I figured we'd give our perspective, give our thoughts, and see the direction that he takes it. Without further ado, let's get into it.
I'm sure you've realised ever since the pandemic that absolutely everyone you've ever met has now got a podcast. And it's not even plugged into anything. But there is a big problem on the horizon that we're already starting to experience. Follow me. Now, you're probably like, what were you filming then? Is it too much to ask to keep the camera on me? Now, problem number one is if you're like me, I like listening to the Joe Rogan podcast. So when he went over to Spotify, we celebrated it. And we were happy to pay that Spotify membership. But then for some reason, although we're paying Spotify the money, he's still putting ads in the podcast. So I'm there in bed listening to an episode, about to fall asleep. And then bam.
This episode is brought to you by Athletic Greens.
You're like, whoa. So you're like, hold on, I'm paying you Spotify so I don't get ads. And now I'm getting ads.
I ain't even gonna lie, like there's times where I'll be biking and it'll be long, strenuous or endurance cardio. And I'll have podcasts playing. And it'll be in the middle of maybe like putting in upper resistance or that tired component. And then you just get hit with that ad that just throws you out of your autopilot of what you're engaged in. And it does kill a little bit of momentum.
Ads either way.
It really,
and they don't even play them
does.
at the beginning like Lex Friedman so you can skip through them and pretend you listen to them. They put them, bam, come on, over here,
No.
come on. For many of you, you've probably heard of a podcast called Diary of a CEO with Stephen Bartlett. And congratulations, they just hit 5 million subscribers on YouTube, which is amazing. But there's a lot of controversy between the guests at the moment, and all the guests seem to contradict each other and say different things, but they're all renowned experts. But being an expert isn't merely enough, because if you think about it, if two companies are suing each other, both companies will have experts, and those both experts in the same field would disagree with each other. Just making someone an expert doesn't mean they're right, or you wouldn't have people on different sides. And there are several components to operating a podcast in 2024 that people aren't thinking about. Podcasts are businesses. They are not vessels or means of getting you free information, although it may feel that way. Places like YouTube will pay you AdSense, but when you start looking at these podcasts as businesses, this is only a fraction, maybe 10 to 20% of what that business is earning is being paid for by Google. One of the main places you will earn money in a podcast is sponsors. And the sponsor will pay depending on the amount of downloads or the amount of views, because you are putting eyes and ears in front of their brand. Podcasts also use discount codes, but they're not discount codes, they're commission codes. When you look at Huberman promoting Athletic Greens, if you use this code for the discount, it actually allows Athletic Greens to understand where they're giving their commission to. And if we use Athletic Greens as an example, you're not only looking at $50 commission per sale, but every sale they're on in. So no doubt, a sponsor will not just pay the person to be mentioned, they will then pay the person every time there's commission on their product and sales on their in. So when the likes of Huberman are saying Athletic Greens is really good and it makes them feel so much better, they're not just looking at commission, they're looking at recurring commission. Now, what makes things interesting? So if we look at a company like Huel, Stephen Bartlett is a non-executive director of Huel, which I assume means he has shares in the business. So although I'm sure that Huel pay Diary of a CEO money, every time Stephen Bartlett mentions Huel, he's also inflating the portfolio of a business that he's got shares in. And before I say, that's terrible, I do that every time I tell you about Nutonic, the world's first productivity drinks. Oh, my shares in the business just went up. So far, nothing really is wrong with this picture. The problem...
Man, at the same time, you gotta get to do what you gotta do. It's not new to anybody, and I think that even in today's videos, and people see advertisements, they're like, all right, yeah, I got it. I mean, if anyone's maliciously attacking someone for implementing advertisements, it's just like it's part of the business that he's structuring and he's explaining to everybody, I think. And that's just one of the things to keep in mind. And if you do care about that person's content, then you're going to have to understand that this person is going to maximize that component to do more of it. And if he can do more of it, that in turn affects the consumer and their ability to be entertained, or structuring more content for that consumer because this has become a full-time job now, or this has become something as a business.
Problem starts becoming apparent when you start looking at guests. In the beginning, you want fantastic guests who can arrive and change people's lives and give people so much information and get massive amounts of views and grow your channel to 5 million subscribers. But you will exhaust the amount of great guests very soon. And you can get those guests back on, or what we're starting to see is you bring on guests not who are known for being factually correct or objective, but that you know will cause controversy, cause a rift between the followers, cause massive amounts of engagement, cause people to be so outraged that they go and watch the podcast just to see what's factually incorrect in it, and of course, get huge amounts of views.
Almost dramatic in a sense.
The thumbnail for the episode is changed every hour on the hour, 12 hours after the podcast is released, to see which thumbnail causes people to click on the most. There is a science to this, and they're choosing titles that are provocative, intriguing, but we're now at the point where people are just looking to piss people off. And if that means you're using misinformation, if it brings you views, and it brings you listens, and it brings you attention, that's not only going to bring you more money from sponsors, it's also going to give you more prospects to sell the business in which you're promoting. And all you need to do is check the comment section of these guests when they're announced. There was even a post by the vegan doctor that I was meant to show you guys here, but I think it's been deleted because the comments were so bad on it. But although you can cause a lot of controversy from the amount of people that are coming to your page, if it boosts your revenue, you will continue to do that habit or endeavor. It's a positive feedback loop. So the biggest issue you see in models like Diary of a CEO is that it's very apparent this is becoming more of a business operation than it is trying to get good quality information to the forefront of the listeners. Let's have a look at some of the comments.
I love cheese.
I'm honestly starting to get tired of all these health food experts. If I followed every advice of the guests on the show, I'd have to change my diet every week. How do you elaborate all of these contradictory statements from all of your different guests? I watch all the episodes and I find it really hard. And so many of the things that people are saying on podcasts are just not true. And a great example of this would be the misinformation that Ben Carpenter put out this week. I'll tell you what, Ben, I'm even going to show people you're real because I think it's really important.
100 normal individuals, 25 in 4 different groups. One group, 1 liter of sugared soda per day for 6 months. One group, 1 liter of diet soda per day for 6 months. One group, 1 liter of milk per day for 6 months. Final group, 1 liter of water per day for 6 months. The 1 liter of soda per day in 6 months gained 10 kilos.
The sugary soda.
The sugary soda.
10 kilos.
The 1 liter of water per day lost 2 kilos. 1 liter of milk per day, no change.
Presumably that was full-fat milk. We're talking about Euro.
Full-fat milk.
Yeah, they like their full-fat milk.
No change. And finally, the key, the kicker to the whole thing, diet soda. The 1 liter of diet soda. What would you predict their weight would do?
More weight loss than in the water group based on my understanding of the literature.
They gained 2 kilos.
Podcasts talking about science? Love it. Podcasts including references in their show notes? Especially love it. Podcasts that totally misrepresent what the study actually said? Don't love it quite so much. Here is what that study actually showed. Firstly, it was 60 people, not 100. Secondly, it wasn't full-fat milk. Thirdly, most importantly, those incredible sounding numbers, they are absolute bullshit. He claimed soda resulted in 10 kilos of weight gain, 2 kilos from diet soda, no change from milk, 2 kilos weight loss from water. Guess what the study actually showed? No significant body weight change in any group. There was a tiny trend for weight and fat gain in the soda group, but it was not 10 kilograms. It was a measly 1.25 kilograms. Drinking the sugary soda did increase ectopic fat levels, and other studies show they can promote weight and fat gain, even if that wasn't seen in this study. Anyone who even bothers to skim read the abstract will know that what he is saying isn't even close to factually correct. My point is, please be careful which podcasts you trust, even if you happen to like the people behind the microphone.
And the biggest issue is going to be this. Supply and demand are not in a position to serve each other. Because think of it, you've got Joe Rogan, you've got Lex Fridman, you've got Chris Williamson, you've got Stephen Bartlett, you've got all these well-established businesses that are all fighting over a supply of good speakers. And once they've been interviewed on one podcast, their stocks are diluted because people go, well, I listened to Matthew Walker and Joe Rogan, so I'm not going to listen to him on Chris Williamson. So you have all these people fighting for this really small amount of supply of actually good people to have on. And when you can't access those people, you need to start going to the bottom of the bucket and finding people that are divisive, controversial, or that are just going to say things against the status quo, like we just saw in Ben Carpenter's reel. People are going to cherry pick studies, or worse yet, make up their own outcome of the studies, because people at the moment are making a snapshot from these reels that are put out and taking that as evidence. Even this guy in my DMs, you might have to throw in the towel soon. I was like, mate, you've watched one reel. I said, it's already been debunked, you nonce, which in English means paedophile. Just keeping you on your toes, dickhead. Then sends me Jason Fung, one of the most notorious charlatans and misinformation. The last thing I'm going to leave you with is something called the confirmation bias. And the confirmation bias is where you go out and seek information that already fits your narrative and you ignore everything else that doesn't. The current state of the world is that people will see something.
I mean, this is one of the biggest contributors to echo chambers. And I think that when we stick to our echo chambers, I think that that's why we get such a confirmation of our beliefs, because nothing is there to disrupt it. Nothing is there to get in the way or uplift our pre-existing belief, and allowing for a sense of open-mindedness for us to find new variations of that information. And we kind of fell for it. Obviously, I haven't seen that reel, and the way that he was confidently talking about it, it almost seemed plausible until the facts were put out. And then it's just like, damn, that person was on live TV with a professional, and he thought the best thing you can do is lie about a study that literally anyone can look up. And I feel like when misinformation becomes the predominant feature, which is, in other words, be entertaining, right? Be dramatic, be like, oh, wow, that's incredible information. I feel like when that becomes the important fact or the important feature of the podcast, you're like a bad news outlet at that point, right? Where it's not even in a sense to help people or provide information to people that it can be beneficial to them, especially with the reel displayed. No, it's just to be entertaining. And I feel like the conduct in which some people pitch their podcasts, if you have the guys that you're here to help people, or that you're here in a sense of giving perspective to your viewers, I don't think it's wise to pursue misinformation or pursue the supply and demand of interesting people or controversial types in the way that he states the delivery of podcasts as a business. Now, if your component is to purely entertain, let that be known. I think it's hard for people to admit that they're just there to entertain people and just make the most outrageous components, period, because of their shamelessness. I think it has a lot to do with shamelessness when people are willing to cause controversy for the sake of their pockets. I think that's a little shameless. I think that's a little spineless, to be fair.
That someone says in 90 seconds. They won't reference studies, they won't reference any literature, they'll just say it with enough conviction that people think it's true. They will then take that information and try and convert people around them. This is causing mass confusion. And the big issue with all of this is when so much information is contradicting, people won't listen to any of it. It's a real shame, because podcasts for so many years were such an amazing way for you to bolster your knowledge, but now you're just being drip-fed bullshit so that other companies can profit off of getting more downloads, views, and listens. It's a sad reality of the world, and I don't see it getting better anytime soon. Thanks for watching.
So that was the video by James Smith, and damn, what's very ironic is my pitch on the concepts of podcasts, and that's why I called it the podcast trap. Now, he touched on how to monopolize it, which that's something that I wasn't too familiar with. Obviously, I'm not too set in my own path to fully know what that looks like, considering how small of a content creator I actually am. But it goes to show that people are seeing this issue. People are seeing this problem. And like I said, we're currently working on a video that will elaborate on the character components and the discrepancies of pushing forth that kind of importance around controversy, that kind of importance around drama and entertainment. I don't think that's wise. And a lot of people drive with the idea that they're there for the sense of morality, that they got this moral compass. Listen to them. They're these leaders. And that applies to streamers as well, which is another video that I did. And I think the podcast being synonymous to bad news is so relative right now, I think that's so relative right now, considering that it is literally the same thing. It's the same thing. The news is there to inform the public. That doesn't have a moral inclination anymore. It's not there anymore. The inclination to tell the truth, or at least be transparent, or at least not lie, right, is gone. It's not. That doesn't matter, because that doesn't get the ears and eyes. Even though it would be helpful in all cases, to be honest, you're there to inform. You're not there to entertain. And I think that when some podcasts take the stance of, oh, I'm here to benefit a crowd, or I'm here to help others, I'm here to enlighten others by talking about very complicated and sophisticated subjects, it's like, okay, then you're there to enlighten. You're not there to entertain. And by your process of enlightenment, do you become more successful with a much more enriched community than the entertained? And I think that there is a slice of entertainment in the concept of being enlightened, because it's nice to see people perspective outside of your own. It's nice to absorb things about a video maybe that you've already seen. Like React content is a perfect example. You have people that elaborate videos on a grander scale, and then you got people that just say, oh wow, oh wow, oh wow, like the whole time they're watching the video. That's not really adding to the content, right? And obviously this is a little bit of a gray area, because some people like React stuff, some people don't. I think I like watching content that is in lieu of some of the stuff I cover, and then adding my perspective to it. And then for anyone that's been following me, I think that it's always good to see maybe a perspective that you do admire, that you do care for, add to some of the stuff that you've already seen in your life, and maybe it adds context that you didn't think about. And I do the same thing when I watch stuff with other people, and it's interesting to have their takes on some of the stuff that I've been watching for a while now. And it goes to show. But like I said, video in the works, something very similar, just not along the lines of economic advantages that podcasts bring, but on the other side of the spectrum in regards to character. So thanks again for watching the video. Please comment, like, and subscribe. And if you dislike the video, then dislike it, and you'll never see me again. But also comment in the comment section down below for your perspective on this pitch. I think that he covered a pretty wide-ranging component of economics, and I think that identifying that business versus passion can be a problem. But let me know your thoughts. I found this very interesting and ironic considering what I'm about to do, but stay tuned. With that being said, I'll go ahead, see you next time.